Did you know? Aging isn't about getting older. It's about toxins slowly building up inside you. No pain. No sound. Just quietly stealing your youth. Day by day. Since 2025, my Lord has extended the human lifespan. Aging equals toxin accumulation. A slow, painless breakdown of life. Fuchi Wu. July 10, 2025, Taipei.
All right, let's dive into something really, really eye-opening today. Have you ever noticed those subtle shifts, things happening in your body as you get older? Maybe a joint that just aches a little more often, or your skin doesn't quite bounce back like it used to, or maybe you just feel, wow, less vibrant.
Yeah, that feeling of being a bit off.
Exactly. We all experience these things, and our first thought is usually, oh, well, I'm just getting older.
Right, that's the default explanation. Yeah.
Oh, but what if aging isn't just about the clock ticking? What if it's something maybe more insidious, but also, and this is the key part, something potentially preventable?
That's the really interesting angle here.
So today, we're taking a deep dive into a truly provocative idea. It comes from the book Aging, a Toxin Accumulation. The original title is quite descriptive, too. Gutieo Sibosis Hokoyu. It's a recent publication from Taipei. And our mission, really, is to pull out the absolute gold from this material. We want to give you the fastest path to understanding this, well, pretty mind-blowing take on what makes us age.
It really is a fascinating perspective.
Yeah.
Because this source, it challenges such a deeply ingrained belief we all have, you know?
Which is?
That aging is just this natural, inevitable, linear thing that happens. Instead, it offers a complete reframing. It suggests we might actually have far more agency than we realize.
And this isn't just theory for the author, is it? It really started with his own experience.
Exactly. His personal story is quite compelling.
He talks about how he first noticed his pectoral muscles atrophying, shrinking, and he just thought,
I'm getting older.
Right, it's part of the deal. But then things got weirder, genuinely puzzling. He started getting these strange, inexplicable herpes outbreaks.
Which is obviously concerning.
Very. And here's where it really makes you stop and think.
Right.
He did all the standard medical checks, biopsies, blood tests, the whole lot. Everything came back normal, consistently normal. Doctors were stumped, and frankly, so was he.
Wow. That really highlights a potential gap, doesn't it? His body was clearly signaling something was wrong.
Loud and clear signal.
But the traditional indicators, they just weren't picking it up. This is kind of the essence of that silent poisoning idea the author talks about.
So what was the turning point for him?
Well, it was actually a friend who suggested seeing a nutritionist.
Ah, okay. A different approach.
A very different approach. And the nutritionist's advice was pretty counterintuitive, especially given his diet at the time. He'd been eating just one meal a day, mostly fruit.
Oh, wow. That doesn't sound like much protein.
Exactly. And her simple suggestion was, maybe your protein isn't enough. She told him to try eating at least one egg daily.
Just one egg? That sounds almost too simple.
It does, doesn't it? But the results were apparently quite remarkable.
What happened?
Two really powerful things. First, the herpes. Completely cleared up.
Yeah.
Gone.
No.
Yeah. And second, those pectoral muscles that were shrinking, they slowly started to grow back.
From just adding an egg a day.
That's what he reports.
Yeah.
And this personal experience, this turnaround, it sparked his big epiphany. This is the core thesis we're diving into today.
Which is?
Human aging and breakdown have never been a natural outcome, but a chronic, self-destructive damage process caused by toxin accumulation and nutrient deficiency.
Okay, wow. That is a huge statement. It just flips everything we think about aging completely on its head.
It really does.
And the source goes further, right? It talks about this truly alarming insight, something about awareness.
Yes, exactly. The quote is, "It's not the poison, but the unawareness." That's the terrifying part, meaning the body's degeneration, as the book describes it, is very slow, painless, unconscious. You generally don't notice it until something goes wrong.
So we've all been taught, aging equals time passing, but this suggests what? It's the stuff we breathe, the food gaps.
That's precisely the argument. That what truly makes you old, in the sense of functional decline, are the toxins you're exposed to daily, often unknowingly, and the nutritional gaps you haven't filled.
And the author's own story is the perfect example.
It really is. His muscle atrophy, the skin lesions, these were direct results of long-term protein deficiency, according to this perspective. But there was no pain, no obvious discomfort for a long time.
Right, until his body just couldn't cope anymore.
Exactly. It wasn't until his cells were, and this is the book's phrasing, about to collapse, that his body sent that clear warning sign, the herpes.
It really underlines that idea of silent poisoning. Damage just quietly building up.
Quietly eroding your health without obvious symptoms, until you hit some kind of critical threshold.
So let's get into the mechanism then. If aging isn't just time, what is driving it according to this book?
Okay, so the core idea is aging isn't this linear progression. It's a functional imbalance caused by these accumulating toxins and these ongoing nutritional imbalances. Our body's repair system, which is working constantly, by the way, it relies heavily on the nutrients we get daily, and crucially, the quality of the air we breathe, especially when we sleep.
Okay, so repair needs fuel and clean air. Makes sense.
But the damage from toxins, the author argues, it just adds up little by little, every single day. You don't feel each tiny hit, but it's constantly eroding your cells.
And eventually this shows up physically.
Right. And it shows up in ways we usually just dismiss as getting old. The source actually lists common signs it claims are direct results of this toxin accumulation.
Like what?
Things like your face becoming loose, your skin darkening, pectoral muscles shrinking like the author experienced, appetite getting worse, and just generally your body's repair process is slowing down.
So we see those things and think age.
But the author urges us to reconsider them. Are they really age? Or are they signals of an internal toxin overload? He puts it very bluntly. Not old, but too many toxins.
That is a powerful distinction. So how does this silent poisoning actually play out over time? Does the book offer a model?
It does. It introduces a really clear framework, actually, the 4 stages of toxic aging. And it uses the author's own journey as the example, which makes it quite vivid.
Okay, let's walk through those stages.
Sure. So stage 1 is where you see those early subtle things, maybe some muscle atrophy, feeling less mentally sharp, your skin getting a bit rough. The good news here, this stage is considered reversible.
Okay, so you can catch it early.
Hopefully. Then you move into stage 2.
Yeah.
This is where more obvious issues pop up. Things like the author's herpes outbreaks, maybe new allergies, signs your immune system is getting unbalanced. Here the book says reversibility becomes limited.
Getting more serious.
Definitely. Then comes stage 3. This is described as the point where your body hits its toxin saturation point, a critical threshold. This leads to a deeper cellular system imbalance. And at this point, the damage is seen as only mitigable. You can manage it, maybe slow it, but not fully reverse it.
Wow. That saturation point idea is sobering.
It is. And finally, there's stage 4. This is the most severe. Organ function starts to collapse. You enter a chronic disease state. Here, the damage is described as almost irreversible.
That's a grim progression, and it really highlights that saturation point concept. There's a limit to what the body can buffer, it seems.
That's the implication.
So the big takeaways from this model, it sounds like the body can just quietly lose balance, silently grow old, as the source puts it.
Yes, and leads to another stark warning in the book. Normal physical examinations do not mean you have no problem.
Right, like the author's own experience showed. So if the standard tests might miss the slow decline, what does the book suggest? Are there other ways to detect it early?
Well, it's less about specific new tests and more about a shift in perspective. The argument is that conventional medicine is great at spotting acute illness, right?
Sure. Infections, injuries.
Exactly. But it often misses this chronic, slow buildup of cellular dysfunction. The author suggests we need to pay much closer attention to those subtle symptoms we usually brush off: persistent fatigue, minor skin issues, unexplained aches.
Don't just call it getting old.
Right. See them as potential early warnings from a body struggling with this toxin load. And he makes a very strong point. The human body, he claims, has no natural detox organs that can handle intracellular toxins inside the cells themselves.
Meaning once it gets that deep?
Once the poisoning enters the cellular and organ level, he argues, it is irreversible damage.
Okay, that sounds pretty bleak. But you mentioned earlier there's a hopeful message too.
There is, absolutely. Despite the serious warnings, the author firmly states that human aging and organ decay aren't fate. They're not some punishment. Instead, he presents it as a predictable, blockable, controllable physical process. But it hinges on making a conscious choice, basically today.
And what is that choice? What's the action?
The singular, most effective action, according to the book, is simply blocking the further accumulation of toxins.
Blocking more toxins from getting in.
Exactly. And what's really interesting is how this one solution is applied across different stages of health.
How so?
Okay, so 3 scenarios. First, if you don't have obvious health problems yet, blocking continuous toxin intake, he says, can delay the occurrence of dysfunction and aging. That's what he calls maintaining health. Simple prevention.
Makes sense. What's next?
Second, if your body has already entered a period of dysfunction, maybe of allergies, chronic fatigue, endocrine issues, here, blocking further toxin accumulation can apparently delay the occurrence of organ failure. And get this, can also maximize the efficacy of medication by reducing interference from environmental toxins.
So it helps even if you're already dealing with issues.
That's the claim. He calls this the true meaning of saving patients, reducing that toxic burden.
Okay. And the third stage?
Third, if one organ has already shown signs of damage, say your liver, kidneys, skin, immune system, even then, persisting in purifying the air and blocking toxin intrusion can potentially prevent the successive failure of the second and third organs. It helps contain the damage. This, he argues, is aiding longevity.
Wow. So I'm hearing this right. The core action block more toxins is the key strategy, whether you're perfectly healthy, starting to feel off, or already have organ damage.
That's the message. The fundamental solution is consistent.
And the way to implement this, the author talks about something called the Life Module 2026 standard.
Oh,
What is that exactly?
right. It's presented less as a specific product you can just buy off the shelf and more as maybe a conceptual blueprint. It represents achieving an environment, primarily your living space, that is meticulously engineered to be pure, non-toxic, and oxygen-rich.
So it's about creating a safe haven, essentially.
It's safe haven at the microscopic level. That's presented as the truly vital step. And the author is very clear on this point. He says, this is not superstition, this is science, and it is compassion.
Science and compassion. Interesting framing.
And he strongly links this back to the idea that the real fight against aging doesn't start with fancy creams or supplements.
It starts where?
It begins, quoting the source, with the air you breathe every night, which leads us straight into a crucial part of this deep dive, the focus on air toxins.
Okay, let's break those down.
The source divides them into 2 main categories, indoor and outdoor, and it stresses they're acting on us simultaneously. It's a constant 247 exposure.
Okay, let's start indoors, where we think we're safest.
Yeah, the book really challenges that assumption. Indoor sources are incredibly pervasive. We're talking volatile organic compounds, VOCs, and microplastics.
From where?
Things like car interiors, plastics all around us, even furniture fabrics. Then you've got chemicals leaching from decor materials, formaldehyde, benzene, ammonia, paints, silicone. We use them all the time in renovations.
Right, new car smell, new paint smell. Maybe not so great.
Maybe not. And then add artificial fragrances, toxic molecules from perfumes, cosmetic shampoos, bath gels, cleaning agents. The list goes on.
Wow, it's a lot.
It is. Even some air purifiers could be an issue if they generate excess ozone. And central air conditioning systems. They can become breeding grounds for mold spores and microtoxic particles.
And the danger here isn't like immediate poisoning.
Exactly. It's not acute. It's the daily accumulation. Each exposure is small, maybe insignificant on its own. But day after day, it pushes you closer to that toxin saturation point.
That really makes you reconsider your home environment. Okay, so then you think, fine, I'll just open a window, get some fresh air. But the source warns about outdoor air, too.
Oh, absolutely. Outdoor air toxins are just as widespread, just different sources. Think vehicle exhaust, brake dust, shiny particles flying off brakes, microplastics from tires wearing down. That's cars, motorcycles, trucks, even airplanes.
Okay, what else?
City life itself is a big contributor. PM2.5 particles, PM 0.1, even smaller ones. Heavy metal particles from construction, cement dust, road wear.
Can you give us a sense of scale? How small is PM 0.1?
Okay, so a human hair is about 70 micrometers thick.
Yeah.
PM 2.5 is 2.5 micrometers. PM 0.1 is just 0.1 micrometers. It's incredibly tiny.
Yeah.
Invisible.
Okay.
Then add industrial sources, particles from factory burning, incinerators, acid mist, these submicron aerosols floating around. Even agriculture plays a role.
Oh.
Pesticide particles can attach to plant pollen. So, as the source graphically puts it, sometimes you smell the fragrance but also inhale insecticide.
Oh.
And finally, big environmental events. Wildfire smoke, sandstorms, these unleash massive amounts of PM 0.1 and even smaller nanoparticles. And the danger with these tiniest particles.
What's the specific danger?
The book warns they're so small they can penetrate alveoli, the tiny air sacs in your lungs, enter the bloodstream, and ultimately reach the brain and cell nucleus, changing cell destiny.
Right into the core of your cells. That's
Yeah.
quite alarming.
It paints a very stark picture of the constant invisible assault, which is why the source concludes this part with that blunt warning. Opening a window is equivalent to allowing toxins to freely enter.
So it's not just an occasional problem.
It's framed as a 24-hour toxin infiltration battle.
Okay, so if we're facing this constant battle with microscopic toxins indoors and out, the obvious question is, what about air filters? Don't they help?
That's what most of us assume, right?
Yeah.
Get a good HEPA filter, problem solved.
Yeah. But the source challenges this.
It does, quite strongly. It argues that even many new air systems, if they rely on traditional HEPA designs, are fundamentally ineffective against the most dangerous particles, those nanoscale ones.
Why? What's wrong with HEPA, according to this book?
It points out several critical limitations. First, the HEPA standard itself. It's primarily designed to capture particles 0.3 micrometers and larger, which means those PM 0.1 particles and the even smaller ones we just talked about, they almost entirely penetrate standard HEPA filters. They just go right through.
So the most dangerous stuff gets through.
That's the argument. Second, airflow speed. In many systems, the air moves too fast. The filter material doesn't get sufficient dwell time for absorption. Think of it like trying to catch something thrown really fast. You need more time.
Okay, that makes sense.
Third, the electrostatic charge. Many filters use this charge to help grab particles, but the book claims this charge becomes ineffective within weeks, so the filter's performance drops off rapidly.
Ah, so it works well initially, but then
degrades quickly. And finally, traditional HEPA filters often lack a really sophisticated internal structure, what the book calls a maze structure.
What does the maze structure do?
It's crucial for two things: inertial impaction, where heavier particles literally crash into the filter fibers because they can't follow the twisting air path, and long-lasting electrostatic absorption, using charge effectively within that complex structure.
So if the standard filters aren't cutting it for these tiny, dangerous particles, what's the solution? What's needed for this Life Module 2026 air quality standard?
Well, the author points towards next-generation filtration. Systems designed specifically to capture those ultrafine, most toxic particles that current HEPA often misses.
And the key is that design.
Exactly. It's about incorporating things like that intricate maze structure for better physical capture, ensuring enough dwell time for absorption to actually happen, and using electrostatic charges that remain effective longer. It's about building systems that can consistently intercept the finest, most toxic group of killers, as the source puts it.
Killers at the cellular level.
Precisely. It's presented not just as an upgrade, but as a fundamental shift needed for genuine health protection in our modern environment.
And bringing this all together back to the core message, that quote you mentioned earlier really hits home now.
Which one?
Aging is not time pushing you forward, it's toxins quietly dragging you down.
Yes. That encapsulates it perfectly.
It just completely reframes that feeling of getting older. The book argues when you start to get old, it's not because of age, but because the toxins in your body begin to overwhelm the repair system.
And that's the entire rationale behind advocating for this Life Module 2026 standard for your living space. It's about recognizing this toxic burden and taking proactive steps.
Moving from just accepting aging to actively defending yourself at a cellular level.
Exactly. It's presented as a necessary, proactive approach for anyone concerned about long-term health, particularly from age 35 onwards, as the book suggests.
It really is about empowering you, the listener, giving you a sense of control over something that often feels inevitable. And that final thought from the source really stays with you. True youth is not in skincare products or genes, but in what you eat daily, what you breathe, and whether you are still living in a chronic toxic environment.
It brings it back to the fundamentals.
It really does. And maybe the ultimate punchline for you listening is this. You think you are slowly getting older, but in fact, you are slowly getting poisoned. Knowing this, the book suggests, even one day earlier saves you one day earlier.
A powerful motivator to take action.
Absolutely. It really makes you stop and think about your own environment, doesn't it? The air you're breathing right now.